The night they found the body, I was the only one who wasn't surprised. I stood at the edge of the clearing, my bare feet cold against the frost-kissed earth, watching as my sister Kaylin knelt beside the torn remains of what used to be Elder Wren. Her golden hair caught the moonlight like a halo, her strong shoulders squared even in the face of death. The pack circled her, loyal, devoted, terrified, waiting for their elfin training to tell them what to do. No one looked at me. They never did. I wrapped my arms around myself, the thin fabric of my sleep tunic doing nothing against the October wind that cut through the forest. My wolf stirred beneath my skin, restless and uneasy, whispering warnings I didn't want to hear. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for weeks now, but every time I tried to speak, the words died in my throat. Omegas don't speak unless spoken to. That's the first rule I learned. Morgana. My sister's voice sliced through the murmurs of the pack, sharp and commanding. She didn't turn to look at me, but I felt the weight of her attention like a physical thing. Come here. My heart lurched. 30 pairs of eyes swiveled toward me, glowing faintly in the darkness, amber, silver, gold. Judging. Always judging. I forced my feet to move, each step deliberate, controlled. Don't stumble. Don't show weakness. I'd learned that lesson too, written in bruises and whispered insults that followed me like ghosts. When I reached Kaylin's side, I finally saw what was left of Elder Wren. My stomach twisted violently, but I kept my face blank. His chest had been ripped open, ribs splayed like broken wings. His eyes stared up at nothing, clouded and empty. But it wasn't the violence that made my blood run cold, it was the symbol carved into the dirt beside him. 3 claw marks. Curved. Deliberate. The mark of the forgotten. Do you see it? Kaylin's voice was quieter now, meant only for me. Her ice blue eyes flickered to mine for just a heartbeat, and in that moment, I saw something I'd never seen before. Fear. My twin sister, the strongest, fiercest wolf in our generation, was afraid. Yes, I whispered. Then you know what this means. I did. Every wolf in the Shadow Peak pack knew the stories, even if most pretended they didn't. The forgotten were the wolves who'd been exiled centuries ago, cast out for practicing blood magic and defying the moon goddess herself. They'd sworn revenge, promised to return when the pack was at its weakest. And now, apparently, they'd kept that promise. We need to summon the council, Kaylin said, rising to her feet with fluid grace. She was taller than me by 3 inches, broader by 20 pounds of pure muscle. Everything about her screamed alpha, from the way she held her spine to the way the pack instinctively leaned toward her, seeking shelter in her shadow. I was none of those things. The council will want answers, Beta Zed said, stepping forward. He was an older wolf, gray creeping into his temples, but his body was still corded with strength. His gaze swept over me dismissively before landing on Kaylin. They'll want to know how this happened. On our lands. Under our watch. Under your watch, the unspoken words hung in the air. Because Kaylin was the future Alpha. Because our father, Alpha Darkin, had been sick for months now, confined to his chambers while his heir prepared to take his place. Because everyone knew the ceremony was only weeks away. I'll find out who did this, Kaylin said, her jaw set. And I'll make them pay. The pack erupted into howls of approval, their faith in her absolute and unshakable. She was their champion. Their protector. Their future. I took a step back, ready to fade into the background where I belonged, when Kaylin's hand shot out and caught my wrist. Her grip was firm, almost painful. Not you, she said, still not looking at me. You're coming with me. Confusion rippled through me, followed quickly by dread. Why? Finally, she turned. Her eyes met mine, and for a moment, just a flickering, fragile moment, I saw my sister. Not the Alpha. Not the chosen one. Just Kaylin. The girl who used to braid my hair and sneak me extra portions at dinner when the others weren't looking. The girl who promised she'd never let anyone hurt me. That girl was gone now. Had been for years. Because, she said softly, dangerously, You're going to help me prove that you had nothing to do with this." The words hit me like a physical blow. The clearing went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. "What?" I breathed. "The mark of the forgotten was carved with omega claws," Zed said, his voice cold. "Everyone knows that. And there's only one omega in this pack." My knees almost buckled. "I didn't." "I know." Kaylin's grip tightened. "But they don't. And until we find the real killer, you're the most convenient target." She said it like a fact. Like my life, my safety was just another problem to solve, another political maneuver in her rise to power. Maybe it always had been. The pack was muttering now, whispers rising like smoke. I caught fragments, always knew she was trouble, omega blood, curse on the family, and felt something inside me begin to crack. I'd spent my entire life trying to be invisible, trying to take up less space, speak softer, exist smaller. I'd convinced myself that if I was good enough, quiet enough, loyal enough, they might finally see me as something other than a mistake. But standing there, with my sister holding my wrist like a leash, and the pack looking at me like I was already guilty, I realized the truth. It didn't matter what I did. It didn't matter how hard I tried. To them, I would always be the omega, the weakness, the flaw in an otherwise perfect bloodline. "Come," Kaylin said, pulling me toward the path that led back to the pack house. "We're going to the archives. Now." I followed because I had no choice. Because omegas don't refuse alphas. Because some part of me, the stupid, hopeful part one couldn't quite kill, still believed my sister would protect me. But as we walked through the forest, the trees pressing in on either side like dark sentinels, I felt it. The shift. The air tasted different. Felt different. Like the moment before lightning strikes, when everything goes still and electric and wrong. My wolf surged forward, pressing against my ribs, and for the first time in my life, she didn't feel small. She felt awake. "Something's coming," she whispered in my mind. "Something that will change everything." And deep in the mountains beyond our territory, where the forgotten were supposed to be nothing but legend and ghost stories, I could have sworn I heard it. The sound of wolves howling in triumph. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome back to Cindy's Wolfheart Stories. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button right now. And tell me, where are you watching from right now? The archives smelled like decay and forgotten promises. Kaylin pushed open the heavy oak door, and centuries of dust swirled in the lamplight like restless spirits. I followed her inside, my heart hammering against my ribs. The room was circular, carved directly into the mountain itself, with shelves spiraling upward into darkness. Scrolls and leather-bound books lined every surface, their spines cracked and faded. This was where our history lived, where our laws were written, where prophecies were locked away because some truths were too dangerous to speak aloud. "Start with the southeastern section," Kaylin ordered, already moving toward the oldest texts. "Look for anything about the mark of the forgotten. Rituals. Summoning circles. Anything." I wanted to argue. Wanted to demand why she'd accused me in front of the entire pack. But the words stuck in my throat like always, so I simply nodded and moved to where she'd pointed. My fingers traced the spines of ancient books, their titles written in the old language. Blood Rites of the First Wolves. The Exile Chronicles. Prophecies of the Crimson Moon. That last one made my wolf stir uneasily. We'd been born under a blood moon, Kaylin first, me following 3 minutes later. 3 minutes that had determined our entire lives. "I didn't kill Elder Wren," I said quietly, not looking at her. "I know." "Then why did you?" "Because Zed was going to accuse you whether I did or not." Kaylin's voice was hard, practical. "At least this way, I control the narrative. I'm investigating you personally. It buys us time." "Time for what?" I wanted to ask. Time for the pack to sharpen their claws against my throat? But I understood her logic. Kaylin had always been strategic, always thinking 3 moves ahead. It was what made her a perfect alpha. She saw people as pieces on a board, relationships as transactions. Even me. Especially me. Do you remember when we were children? I asked, pulling down a scroll at random. Before the designation ceremony? Kaylin's hands stilled on the book she was examining. For a moment, the only sound was the wind howling outside the archives, rattling the mountain like it wanted in. No, she said finally. Liar. The words slipped out before I could stop it. My eyes widened at my own audacity, but I didn't take it back. Kaylin turned to face me, and in the lamplight, she looked so much like our mother at Hurt. Same sharp cheekbones. Same full lips. Same ice blue eyes that could freeze you solid or melt you completely depending on her mood. Our mother had died giving birth to us. The pack said it was my fault, that I'd been too weak, had taken too long to be born, had drained her life force before I even took my first breath. Kaylin never said whether she believed that or not. Maybe her silence was answer enough. We used to play in the western meadow, I continued, my voice trembling but determined. You'd shift first because you always could, and I'd chase you through the grass. You'd let me catch you sometimes. You'd laugh. That was before we knew what we were, Kaylin said coldly. Before the moon goddess marked us. Before everything changed. It changed for you, I whispered. For me, it just continued. I was always going to be this. Something flickered across her face, regret, maybe, or pain, but it vanished so quickly I might have imagined it. She turned back to her books, dismissing me with her silence. I swallowed the lump in my throat and returned to my search. The scroll in my hands was older than most, the parchment brittle and yellowed. I unrolled it carefully, squinting at the faded text. When the blood moon rises twice in a generation, twins will be born of alpha blood. One will carry the strength of the pack. The other will carry its soul. The roar and the silence. The fist and the heart. Only when both are united can the true alpha emerge. My breath caught. Kaylin. What? Look at this. She was beside me in an instant, her warmth radiating against my side. We'd always been like this, magnets that couldn't help but pull toward each other even when we were trying to stay apart. She read over my shoulder, her body going rigid. That's not the prophecy they read at our designation ceremony, she said slowly. No. My mind raced. They said the firstborn under the blood moon would be alpha. They said nothing about needing both of us. Kaylin snatched the scroll from my hands, reading it again, her lips moving silently. When she looked up, her eyes were blazing with something I couldn't name. Fury? Fear? Hope? If this is real, she said carefully, then everything we've been told is a lie. Or an interpretation, I offered. Maybe they only read the parts that fit what they wanted to believe. That I was always meant to rule alone. Kaylin's jaw clenched. That you were always meant to be nothing. The word hung between us like a blade. Nothing. That's what I'd been told I was for 22 years. Nothing. Worthless. A burden the pack tolerated only because my blood was pure. But this scroll said something different. It said I was necessary. It said my silence, my softness, my omega heart wasn't a weakness, but a piece of something larger. It said I mattered. We need to show this to Father, I said. No. Kaylin's response was immediate and sharp. Not yet. Not until we know what it means. Not until we know who else has seen this and chose to hide it. You think someone buried it on purpose? I think someone has been lying to us our entire lives. She rolled up the scroll and tucked it into her jacket. And I think Elder Wren might have discovered the truth. Which means he was killed to keep him quiet, I finished. Our eyes met, and for the first time in years, we weren't Alpha and Omega. We were just sisters. Just two girls who'd been raised as weapons against each other, finally seeing the strings that had been pulling us apart. We're in danger, Kaylin said quietly. Both of us. Before I could respond, a howl shattered the night. Then another. And another. The pack's emergency call. Kaylin was already running, and I chased after her, just like when we were children. But this time, when we burst out of the archives and into the moonlit courtyard, what we found stole the breath from my lungs. The pack house was on fire. Flames climbed the ancient timber walls, reaching toward the sky like grasping hands. Wolves scattered in panic, their howls mixing with the roar of the inferno. And standing at the edge of the tree line, watching the chaos with glowing red eyes, was a figure I recognized from the old texts. From nightmares. A forgotten. He smiled at me, not Kaelin, and something in my chest cracked wide open. My wolf surged forward, powerful and furious, and nothing like the cowering creature I'd lived with all my life. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that everything was about to change. The Forgotten didn't run. He waited, watching me with eyes that burned like coals, while the pack house collapsed into itself behind us. His smile widened, revealing teeth too sharp to be natural, and then he simply faded into the shadows as if he'd never been there at all. "Did you see?" I started, but Kaelin was already barking orders. "Zed, get the young ones to the safe house. Nikki, organize water chains. Now." The pack moved like a machine, responding to her commands with practiced efficiency. I stood frozen, my eyes locked on the place where the Forgotten had stood. My wolf was still clawing at my insides, demanding to be let out, demanding to chase. I'd never felt her this strong before. This hungry. "Morgana." Kaelin grabbed my arm, spinning me around. "I need you to help with the children. Get them." He was looking at me, I interrupted. The Forgotten. He was looking directly at me. Kaelin's expression shifted, something calculating moving behind her eyes. "You're sure?" "Yes." She released me, her mind already working through possibilities I couldn't see. Around us, wolves were shifting, their massive forms far more effective at fighting fire than their human bodies. I watched Zed transform, his silver-gray wolf easily twice my size, and felt the familiar ache of inadequacy. My wolf was smaller than most. Weaker. My white fur marked me as Omega just as clearly as the designation ceremony had. But right now, she didn't feel weak. She felt like lightning waiting to strike. "Go to Father," Kaelin said suddenly. "Tell him what you saw. Tell him about the scroll. I'll handle this. But go." She pushed me toward the Alpha's residence, a separate structure built into the mountain itself. "If the Forgotten are targeting you specifically, I need to know why. Father might have answers." I ran. Not because Kaelin ordered it, but because she was right. If the Forgotten wanted something from me, if Elder Wren had died because of something connected to that scroll, then our father might be the only one who could explain why. The Alpha's residence was carved from living stone, protected by ancient wards that hummed against my skin as I crossed the threshold. Inside, the air was cool and still, untouched by the chaos outside. Torches lined the hallway, casting flickering shadows that seemed to move with purpose. I'd only been here a handful of times. Omegas weren't welcome in the seat of power. "Father." My voice echoed off the stone walls. "Father, it's Morgana. I need to speak with you." Silence answered me. I moved deeper into the residence, following the familiar pull of pack bonds. I could feel him somewhere ahead, weak, fading, but still there. Still Alpha. Still my father, even if he'd spent most of my life pretending I didn't exist. His chamber door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly, my heart hammering, and found him sitting in a chair by the window, staring out at the burning pack house. He didn't turn when I entered. "Morgana." His voice was rough, worn down by sickness and age. "You shouldn't be here. The Forgotten have returned." I moved closer, taking in how much he'd deteriorated since I'd last seen him. His once powerful frame had withered, his dark hair now entirely silver. But his eyes, amber and sharp, were still alert. Still assessing. "They killed Elder Wren. They burned the pack house. And one of them was watching me." That got his attention. He turned, slowly, painfully, and studied me with an intensity that made me want to squirm. "Tell me everything," he said. So I did. I told him about the Mark of the Forgotten, about Zed's accusation, about finding the scroll in the archives, about the prophecy that suggested Kaelin and I were meant to rule together, not separately. When I finished, Alpha Darkin closed his eyes and released a long, shuddering breath. I'd hoped we'd have more time, he murmured. That this would wait until after the ceremony. Until Kaylin was fully established. You knew. The betrayal tasted like copper on my tongue. You knew about the prophecy and you hid it? I protected you. His eyes snapped open, burning with a father's desperate love I'd never seen directed at me before. It stunned me into silence. Both of you. Do you understand what that prophecy means, Morgana? It means neither of you can rule alone. It means the pack would be forced to accept an Omega as equal to an Alpha. It means everything we've built, every hierarchy, every tradition would crumble. So you chose her, I said numbly. You chose Kaylin and pretended I didn't matter. I chose to keep you alive. He struggled to his feet, gripping the windowsill for support. There are wolves in this pack who would have killed you the moment that prophecy became known. Who would have seen you as a threat to the natural order? By making you invisible, by making you nothing, I made you safe. The words should have comforted me. Should have explained years of neglect and dismissal. But all I felt was hollow. I never wanted to be safe, I whispered. I wanted to be seen. Before he could respond, a commotion erupted from the hallway. Voices raised in anger, the sound of running feet. Kaylin burst through the door, her face streaked with ash, her eyes wild. They took him, she gasped. The forgotten. They took Zed. The room tilted. Zed was our beta, our father's right hand. Without him. There's more, Kaylin continued, her gaze finding mine. They left a message. Carved into the ground where they took him. What did it say? Alpha Darkin demanded. Kaylin's throat worked as she swallowed hard. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Trade the Omega for the Beta. You have until the next moon. Choose wisely. The silence that followed was deafening. I felt 3 pairs of eyes turn toward me, felt the weight of an impossible decision settling onto my shoulders. The pack needed Zed. He was strong, experienced, essential to our survival. I was nothing. No one. The obvious choice. Except. No, Alpha Darkin said firmly. Absolutely not. Father, Kaylin started. I said no. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something I'd never seen before. Pride. The prophecy is real. Which means Morgana is just as necessary to this pack's survival as you are, Kaylin. We don't trade our future for our past. Then Zed dies, Kaylin said flatly. And the pack will blame her. She pointed at me, her expression unreadable. They'll say she's not worth saving. They'll say Omega blood isn't worth Beta blood. And they'll be right. They'll be wrong, our father countered. And you'll help me make them understand that. Kaylin laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're asking me to convince them that my Omega sister is equal to me? That sharing power is somehow better than holding it alone? Father, they'll never accept that. I'll never accept that. The words hit me like claws. I'd known, of course. Known that Kaylin resented me, that she saw me as competition she'd already beaten. But hearing her say it out loud, hearing her dismiss me so easily, something inside me snapped. Then don't, I said quietly. Both of them turned to stare at me. Don't accept it. Don't convince anyone. Just let me go. Morgana, my father started. They want me. I met Kaylin's eyes, saw the flash of surprise there. Then they get me. I'll trade myself for Zed. Don't be stupid, Kaylin said. They'll kill you. Maybe. I straightened my spine, channeling every ounce of strength my wolf was suddenly offering me. Or maybe they know something you don't. Maybe they know exactly what I'm capable of. And what's that? Kaylin challenged. What can an Omega possibly do that an Alpha can't? I smiled. It felt foreign on my face, sharp and dangerous, and nothing like the girl who'd spent her life apologizing for existing. I guess we're about to find out. They didn't let me go alone. Of course they didn't. Kaylin insisted on accompanying me to the exchange point, bringing 6 of our strongest wolves as backup. Alpha Darkin was too weak to join, but I could feel his worry through the pack bond, a constant hum of anxiety that matched my own racing heart. We moved through the forest in formation, Kaylin at the lead, me in the center like something precious that needed protecting. It would have been laughable if the situation weren't so dire. After years of treating me like a burden, they were suddenly acting like I mattered. Because I did matter. The prophecy said so. And that changed everything. When we get there, you stay behind me, Kaylin said without turning around. Her voice was low, meant only for me. Let me do the talking. They asked for me specifically, I replied. I don't think they want to negotiate with you. I don't care what they want. Her shoulders tensed. You're my sister. I'm not letting them take you without a fight. The words should have warmed me. Should have felt like the protection I'd craved my entire life. But there was something brittle in her tone, something that made me wonder if she was defending me or defending her claim to the throne. Both, my wolf supplied. She's always been good at wanting two things at once. We reached the clearing just as the moon climbed to its peak. It was the same place they'd found Elder Wren's body, the ground still stained with his blood. The mark of the Forgotten had been burned into the earth, 3 curved claw marks that seemed to pulse with dark energy. They're here, Nikki whispered. She was one of Kaylin's inner circle, a fierce warrior with burgundy hair and a scar across her throat. I can smell them. Blood and rot and old magic. I could smell it too. But underneath that decay, there was something else. Something that called to my wolf, made her pace and snarl and demand I shift. The Forgotten emerged from the trees like wraiths, 6 of them surrounding us in perfect symmetry. They were bigger than normal wolves, their bodies twisted by the blood magic they'd practiced. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness, and when they smiled, their teeth were black as pitch. The one from the pack house stepped forward. Up close, I could see he'd been handsome once, before the magic had corrupted him. Now his skin was gray as ash, stretched too tight over bones that bent at wrong angles. The Omega came, he said, his voice like gravel scraping stone. How brave. How stupid. Release Zed, Kaylin demanded. Release him now and we'll consider your offer. The Forgotten laughed. All of them did, the sound echoing through the forest like breaking glass. The Alpha-to-Be thinks she can make demands. How precious. I'm not here to play games, Kaylin growled. Her wolf was right beneath her skin, ready to tear free. You want my sister? Prove Zed's alive first. The leader gestured lazily, and 2 of the Forgotten dragged something forward. Someone. Zed's body was broken, bloodied, barely breathing. But his eyes were open, and when he saw me, they widened with recognition and something that looked like reverence? Omega, he rasped. The prophecy. Quiet, the leader snapped, kicking him viciously. Zed's body jerked, but he didn't cry out. We're not interested in your politics. We're interested in her. He pointed directly at me, and I felt every eye in the clearing turn my direction. Kaylin shifted slightly, blocking me from view, but I stepped around her. If this was about me, then I needed to face it. Why? I asked. My voice didn't shake. My hands didn't tremble. For the first time in my life, I felt steady. Certain. Why do you want me? The leader smiled wider. Because you're the key, little Omega. The lock and the key and the door all at once. You just don't know it yet. Riddles, Kaylin spat. If you're going to kill her, just say it. Kill her. The leader laughed again. Oh no. We need her very much alive. We need her willing. We need her to choose. Choose what? I demanded. He moved closer, and Kaylin's wolves growled in warning. But he ignored them, his red eyes locked on mine with an intensity that made my skin crawl. When the time comes, he said softly, you'll have to choose between your sister and your destiny. Between the pack that rejected you and the power that's always been yours. Between being nothing and being everything. She's not going anywhere with you, Kaylin snarled. Trade her for Zed? You can rot in hell first. Such loyalty, the leader mused. But is it loyalty to your sister Alpha? Or loyalty to your throne? Because we both know what that prophecy says. We both know you can't rule without her. And that terrifies you, doesn't it? The thought of sharing power with someone you've spent your whole life crushing underfoot. Kaylin's face flushed with rage. You don't know anything about us. I know everything about you. The leader's gaze flickered between us. I know you love her and hate her in equal measure. I know you'd die for her and kill her if it meant keeping your crown. I know she scares you because her weakness is actually strength, and your strength might actually be weakness. That's why the moon goddess split you. That's why you need each other. Enough, I said. My wolf was howling now, pressing against my skin so hard I thought I might split open. You want me to choose? Fine. I choose to save Zed. I'll go with you. No. Kaylin grabbed my arm. Morgana, don't. Let me go. I met her eyes, saw the conflict raging there. You said it yourself. Beta blood is worth more than Omega blood. The pack needs him. They don't need me. That's not true, she whispered. The prophecy means nothing if we're all dead. I gently removed her hand from my arm. You'll be a great alpha, Kaylin. You always were. You don't need me to prove that. Something cracked in her expression. For just a moment, she looked like the girl from the meadow, the sister who'd braided my hair and promised to keep me safe. Then the alpha slammed back into place, and she straightened her spine. If you hurt her, she said to the Forgotten, I will burn your entire bloodline to ash. I will hunt every last one of you to the ends of the earth. Do you understand me? The leader inclined his head mockingly. We understand perfectly, Alpha. Release the beta. They shoved Zed forward, and Nikki caught him before he could fall. He tried to speak, tried to reach for me, but Kaylin ordered them to get him back to Pack Lands immediately. As they retreated into the forest, Kaylin lingered. She stared at me like she was memorizing my face, like she knew this might be the last time she saw me alive. I'll come for you, she said fiercely. I swear on our mother's grave, I will find you and bring you home. I wanted to believe her. Wanted to believe I was worth saving. But I just nodded and turned toward the Forgotten. I'm ready, I said. The leader's smile was triumphant. Oh, little Omega. You have no idea what you've just set in motion. They surrounded me, their bodies pressing close, and I felt the dark magic curl around my ankles like chains. The last thing I saw before the world went black was Kaylin, standing alone in the clearing, her fists clenched and her face twisted with something that might have been grief. Or relief. I wasn't sure which would hurt more. I woke to the smell of ancient stone and burning sage. My body ached like I'd been torn apart and stitched back together wrong. When I tried to move, I discovered my wrists were bound with silver chains, not tight enough to burn, but secure enough that I couldn't break free. My wolf whimpered inside me, confused and frightened by the dark magic saturating the air. She's awake, a female voice said. Smooth, cultured, nothing like the guttural tones of the male Forgotten who'd taken me. I forced my eyes open. The room was circular, carved from black stone that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Torches lined the walls, their flames burning an unnatural blue. And standing before me, studying me with eyes that shifted between brown and crimson, was a woman who made my breath catch. She was beautiful. Devastatingly so. Her dark hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and her skin held a golden warmth that shouldn't have been possible for one of the Forgotten. She wore robes of deep purple, embroidered with symbols I recognized from the oldest texts. Moon glyphs. The language of the goddess herself. My name is Kara, she said, moving closer. And, before you ask, no, we're not going to hurt you. Despite what your pack believes, we're not monsters. You killed Elder Ren, I said hoarsely. You tortured Zed. Ren discovered our presence and threatened to warn your alpha before we were ready. His death was regrettable but necessary. Kara knelt beside me, bringing us eye level. And Zed was never in real danger. We needed your sister to believe the stakes were high enough to bring you to us. We needed her to let you go. Why? My wolf was still agitated, but something about Kara's presence calmed her slightly. What do you want from me? Kara reached out slowly, giving me time to flinch away. When I didn't, she pressed her palm to my chest, right over my heart. Her magic pulsed against my skin, dark, yes, but not evil. Not corrupted the way the stories claimed. It felt old. Primal. Like the earth itself. "I want to show you the truth," she said. "The truth your father and his council have hidden for 22 years. The truth about what you really are." Before I could respond, she pulled her hand back and the silver chains fell away. I rubbed my wrists, confused. "You're not going to keep me prisoner?" "You were never a prisoner, Morgana." Kara stood and offered me her hand. "You're a guest. And it's time you learned your own history." Against every instinct screaming at me to run, I took her hand. She helped me to my feet, steadying me when my legs threatened to buckle. Whatever magic they'd used to transport me had left me weak and disoriented. Kara led me through a maze of corridors, each one descending deeper into what I realized was a mountain fortress. Other Forgotten watched as we passed, some curious, some hostile, all of them radiating power that made my Omega Wolf want to bare her throat in submission. But she didn't. She held her ground, hackles raised, ready to fight if needed. "Your pack calls us the Forgotten," Kara said as we walked. "But that's not what we are. We're the exiled. There's a difference." "You practiced blood magic," I said. "You defied the moon goddess. The histories were written by the victors." Kara glanced back at me, her expression sad. "Tell me, Morgana, in all those histories, did they ever explain why we were exiled? What crime was so terrible that we deserved to be cast out and hunted for centuries?" I opened my mouth and realized I didn't know. The text simply said the exiled had defied the goddess and were punished for their hubris. No details. No context. Just condemnation. "We asked questions," Kara continued. "We challenged the hierarchy that said alphas were superior to betas, betas to omegas. We suggested that the moon goddess had made all three ranks equal, that they were meant to balance each other rather than create a pyramid of power." She stopped before a massive door carved with intricate symbols. "And for that heresy, we were destroyed." She pushed the door open, revealing a chamber that stole my breath. The walls were covered in murals, ancient, beautiful, depicting wolves of all ranks working together. Alphas and omegas side by side, their wolves merged into beings of impossible power. And in the center of the largest mural, painted in silver and gold, were two wolves. Twins. One white, one golden. Circling each other, their bodies forming the symbol of infinity. "The prophecy of the twin flames," Kara said softly. "The real prophecy, before your council edited it to suit their needs." I moved closer to the mural, transfixed. The white wolf, the Omega, wasn't cowering or submitting. She was glowing, power radiating from her in waves that matched her alpha twin's strength. "Read it," Kara urged, gesturing to the text carved beneath the mural. I read, my voice shaking. "When the blood moon rises twice in a generation, twins will be born of alpha blood. The sun and the moon. The roar and the silence. The fist and the heart. Neither complete without the other. Neither powerful alone. Only when both accept their true nature and bind their souls can the true alpha emerge, a being of perfect balance who will unite the packs and end the tyranny of false hierarchy." My knees gave out. Kara caught me, lowering me gently to the floor. "The scroll I found," I whispered. "It was incomplete. They cut out half the prophecy. They cut out the part that mattered most." Kara sat beside me. "The part that said you're not weaker than Kaylin. You're her equal. Her complement. And together, you two could be something your father and his council fear more than anything." "What?" "Unstoppable." Kara's eyes gleamed. "An alpha who rules with strength and compassion. With strategy and intuition. With dominance and empathy. That's what the Twin Flames prophecy promises. That's what you and Kaylin could become if you were allowed to bond properly." I thought of my sister. Of the way we'd been raised as opposites, as competition, as natural enemies. Of how we loved each other and resented each other in equal measure. Of how we'd never been allowed to simply be sisters. The binding, I said slowly, remembering the text. What does that mean? Kara's expression turned grave. It means you have to choose each other. Freely. Completely. You have to let go of the roles they forced on you, Alpha and Omega, and accept what you truly are. Twin flames. Two halves of one soul. And if we don't? Then the prophecy remains unfulfilled. Kaylin rules alone with strength but no heart. You fade into nothing with heart but no voice. And the packs remain divided, hierarchical, broken. Kara touched my shoulder gently. But there's more, Morgana. Something your father definitely didn't want you to know. My stomach clenched. What? The reason the forgotten, the exiled, have returned now isn't to destroy your pack. It's to save it. She stood and pulled me to my feet. There's a war coming. A threat that makes our ancient feud look like a territorial squabble. And the only thing that can stop it is the true Alpha. Which means we need you and Kaylin to complete the binding. What threat? I demanded. What war? Before Kara could answer, an explosion rocked the fortress. Stone dust rained from the ceiling, and somewhere in the distance, wolves began howling battle cries I recognized. Shadow Peak wolves. My pack. They came for you, Kara said, not sounding surprised. Your sister couldn't wait even one night. Another explosion, closer this time. I could feel Kaylin through our twin bond, rage, fear, determination burning so hot it scorched my consciousness. She was tearing through the exiled's defenses like a hurricane, and she wouldn't stop until she found me. Or until she burned this entire mountain to ash. You have to stop her, Kara said urgently. If she kills too many of us, there won't be enough exiled left to help when the real enemy arrives. What enemy? I grabbed her arm. Tell me what's coming. The Bloodborne. Kara's face went pale. Ancient wolves who feed on pack bonds themselves. They consume the magic that connects us, turning wolves into mindless creatures driven only by hunger. They've been sleeping in the frozen north for centuries, but something woke them. And they're coming south. Ice flooded my veins. I'd heard whispers of the Bloodborne in the oldest texts, nightmares from the time before the packs formed, when wolves were solitary and savage. When we were prey instead of predators. How long do we have? Weeks. Maybe less. Another explosion shook the fortress. But none of it matters if your sister slaughters us tonight. Morgana, please. She'll listen to you. Would she? I wasn't sure. The Kaylin who'd let me go in that clearing had been conflicted, torn between duty and emotion. But the Kaylin I felt through our bond right now was pure alpha fury, single-minded and unstoppable. Still, I had to try. Take me to her, I said. Kara nodded and led me back through the corridors at a run. We burst into the main hall just as Kaylin smashed through the entrance, her massive golden wolf form surrounded by a dozen Shadow Peak warriors. Blood matted her fur, not all of it hers, and her eyes blazed with feral rage. When she saw me, she shifted back to human form so fast it looked painful. She stood there naked, breathing hard, covered in cuts and bruises, looking like an avenging angel. Morgana, she breathed. Then her gaze snapped to Kara, and murder flashed across her face. Get away from my sister. Kaylin, wait. I started forward, but Kara's hand on my arm stopped me. Let her come to you, Kara whispered. Let her choose to listen. Kaylin stalked toward us, every movement predatory. Behind her, Nikki and the others formed a protective wall, ready to attack on her command. The exiled had emerged from every doorway, outnumbering us 3-1, but they held their ground and didn't advance. They were waiting, letting this play out. Did they hurt you? Kaylin demanded, her eyes scanning me for injuries. Did they touch you? No, I said softly. Kaylin, they didn't kidnap me. They saved me. Her expression twisted with confusion and betrayal. What are you talking about? They're the enemy. They killed Ren. They tortured Zed. They killed Ren because he discovered the truth, I interrupted. The truth about the prophecy. About what we really are. I took a shaky breath. We've been lied to our entire lives. Both of us. Morgana, they've poisoned your mind. Look at me. The words came out sharper than I intended, but they had the desired effect. Kaylin froze. Really look at me, Kaylin. Have I ever lied to you? Have I ever given you reason not to trust me? Something in her eyes softened. No, she admitted quietly. Then trust me now. I gestured to the murals surrounding us, to the ancient texts carved into stone. The prophecy they read at our designation ceremony was incomplete. Father knew. The council knew. They hid the truth because they were afraid of what we could become. And what's that? But I could hear it in her voice. She already suspected. Already knew, somewhere deep in her alpha heart, that something had always been wrong about how we'd been raised. Equals, I said simply. Partners. The twin flames. Not Alpha and Omega, but two halves of the true Alpha. Together, we're supposed to be unstoppable. But they couldn't allow that. Couldn't allow a future where Omegas were seen as equal to Alphas. So they cut out half the prophecy and raised us to be rivals instead of allies. Kaylin stared at me for a long moment. I could see her mind working, processing, connecting pieces she'd never allowed herself to examine before. When she finally spoke, her voice was raw. If that's true, then everything Father did, everything he made us believe about ourselves, was a lie. Not a lie, Kara interjected carefully. A choice. He chose to protect the hierarchy rather than fulfill the prophecy. He chose tradition over truth. He chose you over me, I added, the old pain surfacing despite my best efforts to suppress it. He made you the sun and me the shadow. He gave you everything and taught me I deserved nothing. Because admitting I mattered would have destroyed the world he knew. Kaylin's face crumpled. For the first time since we were children, I saw my sister cry. Not dignified tears, but great shuddering sobs that shook her entire body. She fell to her knees, and I was moving before I could think, dropping down beside her and pulling her into my arms. I'm sorry, she gasped against my shoulder. Morgana, I'm so sorry. I knew it was wrong. I felt it every time I watched you shrink yourself down, every time they dismissed you or mocked you or treated you like you were disposable. But I didn't stop them. I told myself it was just how things were, that accepting it was easier than fighting it. I chose my crown over my sister. I know, I whispered, holding her tighter. I know, Kaylin. And I forgave you a long time ago. Why? She pulled back to look at me, her face streaked with tears. How could you forgive that? Because you're my sister. Because I love you, even when I hate you. Because the prophecy is right, we're two halves of the same soul. And souls don't abandon each other, no matter how broken they become. Kaylin let out a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. Then she pressed her forehead to mine, the gesture so intimate and vulnerable that I felt our bond flare to life properly for the first time. Not the weak, one-sided connection we'd maintained out of obligation, but something fierce and bright and whole. The Bloodborn are coming, Kara said gently, giving us this moment, but knowing we needed to face reality. In weeks, maybe sooner. They'll destroy everything, Shadow Peak, the Exiled, every pack between here and the frozen wastes. Unless we stop them. Kaylin's jaw set with determination. Then we stop them. She stood, pulling me up with her, and turned to face Kara with her alpha bearing fully engaged. Tell me everything. Tell me what we need to do. Kara smiled, and for the first time since I'd woken in this fortress, I saw hope in her eyes. The binding ritual, she said. It will merge your strengths, eliminate your weaknesses, and forge you into the true alpha the prophecy speaks of. But it requires something most twins can never give. What? I asked. Absolute trust. Complete vulnerability. You have to open your souls to each other without reservation, without protection, without fear. You have to choose each other over everything else, over your pack, over your pride, over your fear of what you might become. Kara's expression turned grave. And if there's even a shadow of doubt, even the smallest piece of resentment or mistrust, the ritual will fail. And the failure will kill you both. The chamber fell silent. I felt Kaylin's hand tighten around mine, felt her pulse racing against my palm. We'd spent our whole lives as rivals, as opposites, as two wolves circling the same territory and waiting to see who would strike first. Could we really let all that go? Could we really trust each other completely? When do we start? Kaylin asked, her voice steady and sure. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw not the alpha who'd dismissed me, but the girl from the meadow. The girl who'd promised to protect me. The girl who'd just torn through an army to save me, even though saving me meant sharing her throne. Now, I said. We start now. The ritual chamber was deeper than the rest of the fortress, carved into the mountain's heart where the old magic ran strongest. Kara led us down, accompanied by 4 elder exiled who would guide the ceremony. Nikki and the Shadow Peak wolves waited above, still suspicious, but willing to trust Kaylin's judgment. For now, the binding will take 3 nights, Kara explained as we descended. Each night focuses on a different aspect of your souls. Tonight is truth. You must confess every secret, every resentment, every moment of hatred you've harbored against each other. Tomorrow night is sacrifice. You must offer up something precious to prove your commitment. And the final night is union. Your wolves will merge, and you'll be reborn as one consciousness in 2 bodies. One consciousness? Kaylin's voice held a note of alarm. We'll lose ourselves? No. You'll expand yourselves. Kara pushed open a door, revealing a circular chamber lit by hundreds of candles. In the center was a pool of water that glowed with silvery light, pure moon essence, distilled and concentrated. You'll still be Kaylin and Morgana. But you'll also be us. You'll feel what the other feels, know what the other knows. There will be no secrets, no barriers. Just truth. I should have been terrified. Should have balked at the idea of letting Kaylin see every weak, broken, shameful part of me. But instead, I felt relief. Maybe if she saw all of me, really saw me, she'd finally understand why I'd spent my life trying to disappear. Are you ready? Kara asked. Kaylin looked at me. I looked at her. And together, we nodded. The elders began to chant in the old language, their voices harmonizing in a way that made my bones vibrate. Kara gestured for us to enter the pool. The water was warm, almost hot, and it glowed brighter as we waded in until we were chest-deep, facing each other. Take her hands, Kara instructed. I reached out. Kaylin met me halfway. Our fingers intertwined, and the moment our skin touched, the water erupted with light. Pain lanced through my skull, not physical, but emotional. Every memory, every feeling, every secret thought I'd ever had was suddenly exposed, laid bare for Kaylin to see. I gasped, trying to pull away, but her grip tightened. Don't, she gritted out. Don't run. I'm not. I could feel her too. Feel her memories crashing into mine like waves. I saw myself through her eyes, small, pale, always hiding. But I also saw her guilt. Her shame. The nights she'd cried herself to sleep because she'd ignored me that day, because she'd laughed when the others mocked me, because being the perfect alpha meant crushing the only person who'd ever truly loved her. I hated you, I gasped out, the confession tearing from my throat. When they announced you as Alpha to be, when everyone celebrated while I stood there invisible, I hated you so much I wished you dead. I know, Kaylin said, her voice breaking. I felt it. Every time you looked at me, I felt it. And I hated you back for making me feel guilty, for existing as proof that the system was broken, for being the one thing I could never be. What's that? Kind. The word was barely a whisper. You were always kind, Morgana. Even when they hurt you, even when they dismissed you, you never became cruel. Never let them twist you into something bitter and hard. I envied that. Feared it. Because kindness felt like weakness, and I couldn't afford to be weak. The water churned around us, responding to our confessions. More memories surfaced, moments I'd forgotten or tried to bury. Kaylin pushing me behind her when a rogue wolf attacked during a hunt, taking injuries meant for me. Me stealing food from the kitchens and leaving it outside her door when she'd been punished for questioning the council. Small acts of love we'd both pretended didn't happen because acknowledging them would mean acknowledging we still cared. I wanted to choose you, Kaylin said suddenly. That night in the clearing, when they said to trade you for Zed, I wanted to tell them to go to hell. Wanted to fight them all and bring you home. But I couldn't because that would make me weaken the pack's eyes. That would mean admitting an Omega was worth more than a Beta. And I hate myself for it. I know, I said. I felt it through our bond. You wanted to save me and let me go at the same time. How can you not hate me for that? Because I understand. I squeezed her hands. You were trapped too, Kaylin. Trapped by expectations and duty and a role you never asked for. They made you into a weapon and then blamed you for having sharp edges. Kaylin's eyes were streaming tears now, mixing with the glowing water. I'm so tired of being strong, she confessed. I'm tired of always knowing the right thing to do, always making the hard choices, always sacrificing what I want for what the pack needs. I'm tired of being alone. You're not alone, I said fiercely. You've never been alone. I've always been here. But I made you invisible. Then see me now. I pulled her closer until we were nearly pressed together. See all of me, the weak parts, the broken parts, the parts that aren't strong or brave or anything an alpha would respect. See me and choose me anyway. I do, Kaylin breathed. Morgana, I see you. I've always seen you. And you're not weak. You're not broken. You're the strongest person I know because you survived in a world that tried to erase you, and you did it without losing your humanity. The water exploded upward in a column of silver light. The elders' chanting grew louder, more intense. I felt something inside me crack open, not painfully, but like a flower blooming. And rushing through that opening came everything Kaylin had been holding back, her love for me, fierce and desperate and enormous. Her regret, her shame, her hope that maybe, finally, we could be what we were always meant to be. Sisters. Equals. Twin flames. I choose you, I said. I choose you, Kaylin echoed. The light consumed us both, and when it faded, we were no longer standing. We'd collapsed against each other in the water, exhausted and trembling. But the bond between us was no longer a weak thread. It was a cable of steel, unbreakable and bright. Kara waded into the pool and helped us out. The first night is complete. You've shared your truth. Tomorrow, you'll make your sacrifice. But tonight you rest. We were led to a chamber with 2 beds, but we pushed them together without discussion. We lay facing each other in the darkness, still holding hands, neither of us willing to let go. Morgana. Kaylin's voice was small, vulnerable in a way I'd never heard. Yeah, what if I can't do it? What if tomorrow night, when I have to sacrifice something, I can't let go of being alpha? What if I'm too selfish? I thought about that. About what she was really asking. What if I'm not good enough for you? Then we'll fail together, I said simply. But I don't think you will. I think you're braver than you know. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, what if the prophecy is wrong? What if we're not meant to be the true alpha? What if we're just us? I smiled in the darkness. Then we'll still be together. And that's enough. Kaylin's fingers tightened around mine. Promise me something. Anything. If the Bloodborne come before we complete the ritual, if something goes wrong and only one of us can survive, promise me you'll live. Promise me you won't sacrifice yourself for me or the pack or anyone else. Promise me you'll choose yourself for once. My throat tightened. Kaylin. Promise me, Morgana. Please. I wanted to lie. Wanted to promise something I knew I couldn't keep. Because the truth was, I'd already decided that if it came down to a choice between my life and hers, I'd choose her every time. But instead, I just pulled her closer and held her while she fell asleep and tried not to think about the storm I could feel building on the horizon. The storm that would test everything we'd built tonight. The storm that might destroy us both. I woke to screaming. For a disorienting moment, I thought I was dreaming, that the ritual had dredged up some nightmare from my childhood. But then Kaylin bolted upright beside me, her body already shifting, and I realized the screams were real. They were coming from above. We ran through the corridors, following the sounds of battle and the acrid smell of smoke. When we burst into the main hall, chaos greeted us. The exiled were fighting something, creatures that looked like wolves but moved wrong, their bodies jerking and twitching like puppets on strings. Their eyes were empty, white as milk, and they attacked without strategy or mercy. Bloodborne, Kara shouted over the din. She was in her wolf form, her dark fur matted with blood. They found us. They're already here. That's impossible, Kaelin snarled, shifting mid-stride. Her golden wolf was magnificent, twice the size of mine, rippling with raw power. You said we had weeks. I was wrong. Kara tore out the throat of one of the corrupted wolves. It didn't die, just kept coming, mindless and hungry. Something accelerated their awakening. Something powerful. I shifted too, my smaller white wolf form feeling inadequate next to Kaelin's. But when I leaped into the fray, something strange happened. The corrupted wolves turned toward me, their empty eyes somehow focusing, and they hesitated. Just for a second. But it was enough. They recognize you, my wolf said. They recognize what we are. Before I could process that, one of the corrupted wolves lunged. I dodged, but not fast enough. Its claws raked across my side, and pain exploded through me. Worse than the wound itself was what came with it. A pulling sensation, like something was trying to yank my soul out through the tear in my flesh. Kaelin roared, slamming into the creature with enough force to send it flying. She stood over me, protective and furious, while I struggled to my feet. Through our bond, I felt her terror, not for herself, but for me. I'm okay, I said to her. We need to get everyone out. The tunnels, Kara projected to both of us. There are escape tunnels that lead to the valley. We can evacuate, regroup. An explosion rocked the fortress. Not from the Bloodborne, but from the entrance. Through the smoke and debris, figures emerged, shadow peak wolves, led by Beta Zed. His face was grim, determined, and behind him were at least 30 warriors. Alpha Kaelin, he called. We came as reinforcements. Your father sent us when the scouts reported strange wolves moving south. For a heartbeat, relief flooded through me. Reinforcements. We had a chance. Then I saw his eyes. Saw the way they lingered on me with something that looked like calculation. And I remembered what he'd said in the clearing when the exiled had dragged him forward, the prophecy. He knew. Somehow, Zed knew about the true prophecy. Kaelin, I sent urgently. Something's wrong. But it was too late. Zed shifted and lunged not at the Bloodborne, but at me. Kaelin intercepted him mid-leap, and they went down in a tangle of fur and fury. The Shadow Peak wolves hesitated, confused, unsure whether to help their beta or their alpha-to-be. That hesitation cost them. The Bloodborne surged forward, attacking pack and exiled alike, and the hall descended into absolute chaos. I fought my way toward Kaelin, taking down corrupted wolves with a ferocity I didn't know I possessed. My smaller form was actually an advantage. I could slip beneath their attacks, go for joints and throats with precision rather than brute force. Omega strength, my wolf said with dark satisfaction. Strategy over power. Heart over fist. When I reached Kaelin, she had Zed pinned, her jaws around his throat. He'd shifted back to human, his face twisted with rage and something else. Something like desperation. You don't understand, he gasped. The prophecy can't be fulfilled. If you two become the true alpha, everything changes. The hierarchy collapses. Omegas will think they're equal to alphas. Chaos. Anarchy. Equality isn't chaos, I snarled, my wolf's voice coming out distorted and strange. It's evolution. Your father agrees with me, Zed continued, blood trickling from where Kaelin's teeth had broken skin. He sent me here to stop this. To kill the Omega before the binding completes. The words hit like a physical blow. Our father. The man who'd claimed he was protecting me. The man who'd looked at me with what I thought was pride. He'd sent Zed to murder me. Through our bond, I felt Kaelin's heartbreak mirror my own. Felt her rage, her betrayal, her grief that the father we'd both loved in our own ways had chosen tradition over his own daughter. Over both his daughters. He's afraid, Kara said, limping over in her human form. Her leg was badly injured, bone showing through torn flesh. Alpha Darkin is dying, and he knows once he's gone, the old ways die with him. Unless he eliminates the threat before the transfer of power. I'm not a threat, I said numbly. I'm his daughter. You're both. Zed's smile was bitter. And that's why you have to die. He moved fast, faster than should have been possible with Kalen's weight on him. His hand shot out, and suddenly he was holding something that glowed with sickly green light. A talisman. Blood magic. Zed, don't, Kalen started. He crushed the talisman. The magic exploded outward, and I felt it hit me like a battering ram. Not pain exactly, but wrongness. Like every cell in my body was being rewritten, corrupted, turned into something other than wolf. I screamed. Somewhere, Kalen was screaming too. And through our bond, I felt something terrible. The ritual was reversing. The connection we'd built last night was being torn apart, thread by thread. The binding can't complete if one twin is corrupted, Zed said, satisfaction in his voice even as Kalen's claws tore into him. She'll become bloodborne. And you'll have to kill her yourself, Alpha. You'll have to. His words cut off in a gurgle as Nikki appeared and snapped his neck with brutal efficiency. But the damage was done. I could feel the corruption spreading through me, cold and hungry, consuming everything that made me me. Morgana. Kalen shifted back to human, gathering me into her arms. Morgana, stay with me. Fight it. Can't, I gasped. My vision was going white at the edges. Kalen, you have to finish the binding without me. You have to become Alpha and stop the bloodborne. Promise me. No. Her voice broke. No, I'm not losing you. Not now. Not after everything. You have to. I reached up, touching her face with fingers that were already starting to feel numb. The pack needs you. The world needs you. And I need you to live. We live together or die together, Kalen said fiercely. That's the prophecy. That's the choice. And I choose us. Before I could argue, she pulled me upright and dragged us both toward the ritual pool. Kara was shouting something, warning or encouragement, I couldn't tell. The bloodborne were closing in. The Shadow Peak wolves were falling back. Everything was falling apart. But Kalen didn't stop. She pulled us into the pool, and the moon water blazed to life around us. The second night is sacrifice, she said, her voice ringing with command even as tears streamed down her face. I sacrifice my pride, my position, my right to rule alone. I sacrifice everything I was taught to believe about strength and hierarchy and what makes a good alpha. She grabbed my face in both hands, forcing me to look at her. And I offer it all to you. To us. To what we can become together. The corruption was still spreading, still pulling at my soul. But something in her words, in her absolute conviction, slowed it. Gave me enough clarity to speak. I sacrifice my fear, I whispered. My belief that I'm not enough. My acceptance of the lies they told me about my worth. The words came faster, stronger. I sacrifice the cage I built around myself, the smallness I chose because it felt safer than being seen. I offer it all to you. To us. To what we can become together. The water exploded upward, and this time, it didn't just glow, it burned. The corruption screamed as it was consumed by silver fire, purged from my body by the force of our combined will. And in that fire, something new was forged. Our wolves merged. Not physically, but spiritually. I could feel Kalen's strength flowing into me, and my empathy flowing into her. Her strategic mind merged with my intuition. Her dominance balanced by my compassion. Two incomplete halves finally becoming one whole. When we emerged from the pool, we were still separate bodies. Still Kalen and Morgana. But we were also more. The bond between us was no longer just steel, it was diamond. Unbreakable. Eternal. And the power radiating from us made every wolf in that hall drop to their knees. The true alpha, Kara breathed, wonder and hope shining in her eyes. You did it. We turned as one to face the bloodborne. They'd frozen, their empty eyes somehow registering what we'd become. And for the first time since the corruption began, I saw something in those white eyes that gave me hope. Fear. Together. Kaylin's voice in my mind. Together, I confirmed. And then we showed the Bloodborne exactly what the twin flames could do. The power that surged through us was unlike anything I'd ever imagined. It wasn't just Kaylin's strength or my intuition, it was something entirely new, forged from our unity. When we shifted, our wolves moved in perfect synchronization, two bodies with one mind, one purpose. The Bloodborne charged, but we were ready. Kaylin struck first, her golden wolf tearing through their ranks with devastating force. I followed, my white wolf moving like a shadow, targeting the corrupted pack bonds that held them in thrall. Every time my teeth found their mark, I felt the dark magic shatter, felt the trapped souls underneath crying out for release. We can save them, I sent to Kaylin. The Bloodborne corruption, it's not permanent. We can break it. Then we break it all, she agreed. Through our bond, we shared everything. When Kaylin fought, I felt her movements and adjusted mine to complement them. When I sensed a Bloodborne flanking us, she was already moving to intercept. We were a storm of gold and white, unstoppable and precise. Kara rallied the exiled, using their blood magic to contain the corrupted wolves we freed. Nikki organized the Shadow Peak warriors, creating a perimeter that kept the Bloodborne from escaping. Even they could feel it now, the shift in power, the emergence of something that transcended their understanding of Alpha and Omega. But we weren't done. We could feel the source of the corruption, a massive presence beyond the mountain, ancient and hungry. The master Bloodborne that had awakened the others. We have to end this at the source, Kaylin thought. I know, I replied. Together. We broke through the fortress walls and ran into the night, following the thread of dark magic back to its origin. The corrupted wolves tried to stop us, but we moved through them like wind through grass. Nothing could touch us. Nothing could stop us. We found it in a ravine, a creature that had once been wolf, but was now something twisted by centuries of feeding on pack bonds. It was massive, its body a patchwork of different wolves it had consumed, its eyes burning with malevolent intelligence. When it saw us, it laughed. The sound was like bones breaking. The twin flames, it rasped. The prophecy made flesh. But you're too late, little wolves. I've already consumed 3 packs. Soon, there will be nothing left but hunger. It's lying, I sensed. It's afraid. Good, Kaylin growled. It should be. We attacked as one. The Master Bloodborne was powerful, but it had never faced anything like us. Where it expected Alpha strength, it found Omega precision. Where it anticipated Omega submission, it met Alpha fury. We were everything it wasn't balanced, whole, united. The battle raged until dawn. The creature tore at us, its claws opening wounds that should have been fatal. But every time one of us fell, the other pulled them back up. Every time pain threatened to overwhelm us, our bond held us steady. I see why they feared this, Kaylin sent, her thoughts fierce with pride and love. We're unstoppable because we refuse to be separated. And because we chose each other, I added. Not because we had to. Because we wanted to. With a final, coordinated strike, Kaylin's strength and my precision combining into something transcendent, we tore out the creature's corrupted heart. It dissolved into ash, and with it, the corruption binding the other Bloodborne shattered like glass. We stood in the ravine as the sun rose, battered and bloody but alive. Through our bond, we felt the freed wolves stirring, their minds clearing, their pack bonds beginning to heal. We'd won. When we returned to the fortress, everyone was waiting. Shadow Peak wolves, exiled, and the freed Bloodborne victims, all of them watching us with expressions that ranged from awe to uncertainty to hope. Kara stepped forward and knelt. The true Alpha, she said formally. The prophecy fulfilled. One by one, every wolf in that clearing followed her down. Even the Shadow Peak warriors, who'd been raised to believe Omegas were inferior, couldn't deny what they'd witnessed. But as we stood there, Kaylin and I both knew the hardest battle was still ahead. We had to go home. We had to face our father. And we had to convince an entire pack to abandon everything they'd been taught about hierarchy and power. Are you ready? Kaylin asked. With you? I smiled. Always. The Shadow Peak pack house had been rebuilt in our absence, rising from the ashes stronger than before. When we walked through the gates 3 days later, Kaylin and I side by side, followed by an unprecedented alliance of Shadow Peak wolves and exiled, the entire pack gathered to meet us. Alpha Darkin stood at the entrance, supported by attendants, looking older and frilier than I'd ever seen him. But his eyes were sharp when they found us, taking in our synchronized movements, the silver glow that now surrounded us both. Daughters, he said quietly. Father. Kaylin's voice held no anger, just a profound sadness. You sent Zed to kill Morgana. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Our father didn't deny it. I sent him to preserve our way of life, he said. To protect the pack from chaos. You sent him to murder your own daughter because you were afraid of change, I corrected softly. Because accepting that Omegas could be equal to Alphas would destroy the hierarchy you've spent your life upholding. And look what happened instead, Kaylin continued. We became exactly what the prophecy promised. And we saved not just our pack, but 3 others. We stopped the Bloodborne. We forged an alliance that will make all packs stronger. She stepped forward. And we did it by rejecting everything you taught us about power. Alpha Darkin studied us for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was sad and proud and full of regret. You're right, he said. I was afraid. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of admitting I was wrong. Afraid that everything I'd built would crumble. But standing here now, seeing what you've become. He struggled to his knees. I see that I was the weak one. Not Morgana. Me. The crowd gasped. An alpha kneeling was unheard of. I ask forgiveness, he said, his voice breaking. Not as your alpha, but as your father. For every moment I made you feel less than. For every time I chose tradition over truth. For trying to kill the very thing that would save us all. I looked at Kaylin. Through our bond, I felt her conflict, the hurt little girl who'd craved her father's approval warring with the alpha who understood the weight of his crimes. What do you want to do? She asked me. I want to forgive him, I admitted. But I also want him to step down. The pack needs new leadership. Leadership that believes all wolves have value. Agreed. We moved forward together and helped our father to his feet. We forgive you, Kaylin said. But we cannot forget. And the pack deserves better than a leader who would sacrifice his own child to maintain power. I know. Alpha Darkin's eyes were wet. Which is why I'm formally abdicating. Effective immediately, Kaylin and Morgana are your alphas. Equal in authority. United in purpose. The twin flames as the true prophecy foretold. The pack erupted, some in celebration, some in shock, some in protest. But Kara and the exiled began to howl, a sound of joy and vindication that had been silenced for centuries. And slowly, more voices joined them. Nikki. The freed Bloodborne victims. Even some of the traditional Shadow Peak wolves who'd seen what we could do. The opposition would take time. We knew that. Changing centuries of hierarchy wouldn't happen overnight. But we'd started something that couldn't be stopped. Over the following weeks, we implemented new laws. Omegas were given positions of authority based on merit, not rank. The exiled were welcomed back and their blood magic studied rather than feared. Pack bonds were strengthened by choice and respect rather than forced dominance. And Kaylin and I ruled together, our bond growing stronger every day. We still disagreed sometimes. She was still strategic and commanding. I was still empathetic and cautious. But those differences made us better, not weaker. One night, months after the battle, we stood on the cliff overlooking our territory. The moon was full and bright, painting everything silver. Do you ever regret it? Kaylin asked quietly. Giving up your anonymity? You could have stayed invisible, stayed safe. I thought about the girl I'd been, small, afraid, convinced she was nothing. Then I thought about who I'd become, powerful, valued, loved. Never, I said. Being seen is worth every scar. Kaylin smiled and took my hand. Thank you. For what? For not giving up on me. For believing we could be more than what they made us. For choosing us. Always, I promised. We're twin flames, remember? Two halves of one soul. And souls don't abandon each other. We stood together in comfortable silence, watching over the pack that had finally learned what true strength looked like. Not dominance or submission, but balance. Not hierarchy, but harmony. Not alpha or omega, but both. Always both. And somewhere in the mountains, I could have sworn I heard the moon goddess laugh with joy. Hey there, beautiful souls. Can you believe that journey? From invisible Omega to true Alpha, Morgana and Kaylin showed us that real power comes from unity, not division. That strength and compassion aren't opposites, but partners. If this story touched your heart, please hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me what moment made you cry, cheer, or fall in love with these twin flames. Where are you watching from? I want to hear from my pack. And remember, you're never too small, too quiet, or too different to change the world. Until next time, keep howling at the moon.